Today we have an incredible story about a series of paranormal happenings that took part in Blantyre Priory in the middle 1600s. The priory was founded by the Earl of Dunbar in the early 1200s and was dedicated to the Holy Rood or Holy Rod. It was a cell of Jedburgh Abbey in the Borders and was an important religious site until the Reformation. Little now stands of the priory, but substantial remains could be seen until the 1960s. You can see pictures online of the priory in the 1920s and 30s, which show walls standing about 10 foot in height. I am so glad to found this story by sheer chance, and it has given me a reason to come to this incredible site. After I've told you the ghost story, then I will show you the real gem of the site of Blantyre Priory. I've been looking forward to visiting the priory for some time, but decided it would be best to wait until the autumn or winter when there were no leaves on the trees. I am so glad that I did this, as it took me a good 20 minutes to find the site. There are paths going all over the place, but no signs of any kind. The priory sits high over the River Clyde, in a narrow strip of woodland that hugs the river. As there is almost nothing to see, it can be easily overlooked. If you are planning a visit, a helpful way of finding the priory is that it is directly opposite Bothwell Castle, and the massive keep of the castle can easily be spotted. One of the drawbacks in visiting this site at this time of year is the mud. There are steep banks leading down to the river, and they were very slippery. It was sheer luck that I did not take a tumble, get covered in mud and leaves, and look to the attendant in the garage when I stopped for petrol on the way back home like the creature from the Black Lagoon. So if you do go and explore the priory, please be very careful. In 1606, Walter Stewart was created Lord Blantyre. He acquired the priory, which at that time was no longer a religious house. By 1641, he had died and his grandson Alexander was 4th Lord Blantyre. Alexander married Margaret Shaw, who was the daughter of the Laird of Greenock, around 1649. By 1663, Alexander, having taken wrong decisions in politics and business, found himself in severe financial troubles. He was also having marriage problems, and he and his wife and children were living separately. Alexander lived in Cardonald House, and his wife and children at Blantyre Priory. By that time the priory was run down, and conditions there were very poor. Margaret and her children were forced to live underground, in what may have been cellars or storage areas. One of the children died at this time. On the 14th of July, 1663, strange things started to happen at the priory. Sounds were heard in empty rooms, and then stones and bits of peat or coal would fly around rooms thrown by unseen hands. Then things escalated.
Explore Provan Hall after dark.
Is it really haunted?
Join us on the haunted Provan Hall tour.
If you dare.
As apples and pears would also be thrown across the rooms. This would happen both in the light of day and in the hours of darkness. An even stranger and amazing event took place one night, when the servants were all huddling round the fire. Suddenly, and without warning, a large amount of water shot down the chimney. At this the fire started to hiss loudly and steam filled the room. No one would have been able to climb up to the chimney breast without the use of a ladder, and when the servants rushed outside, not only was there no one around, but there was no ladder to be seen anywhere. Margaret gathered her children and fled along with the servants. She was convinced that there was an evil spirit haunting the priory. News of this spread. Lord Blantyre sent one of his agents, a Christopher Morrison, to find out what was going on. When Morrison arrived, he found all the servants were terrified and preparing to quit their jobs and leave. Morrison was told that one of the servants had been hit in the head by a big stone that had knocked her out, and she lay unconscious for a long while. To try and reassure them, Morrison told them that he would stay in the priory until he got to the bottom of these disturbances. Christopher Morrison was left in no doubt that something strange was going on. He blamed it on witchcraft and thought he knew the warlock responsible. Morrison blamed the cook, a man called John Matthew, who sided with the Lord of Blantyre regarding the marriage trouble the Lord had with his wife. Matthew openly discussed the problems between the couple, blaming Margaret, who he referred to as a waster. John Keeper was hit on the head by a large stone, and he blamed John Matthew for this. Alexander Stewart, Lord Blantyre, arrived at the Priory to find out what was going on for himself. At his arrival, all the disturbance stopped and things returned to normal. But Margaret refused to stay in the Priory, blaming an evil spirit for the paranormal happenings, and she went to reside in Cardonald with her children. So that is the story of the haunting of Blantyre Priory. Was it down to John Matthew, thought to be a warlock? Well, John was involved in healing people. He actually killed a woman after giving her a belt to tighten round her waist. He is described as being godless, a drunk who was rude. But it sounds to me like it may have been a poltergeist. Christopher Morrison did not think there was any tricks or fakery going on. The family were going through a period of high stress, a marriage separation, financial struggles. There were also children living within the family affected. This is almost a requirement for poltergeist activity. Whatever caused these strange events in 1663, I would recommend a visit to the Priory. There is not much to see regarding above ground, but in the cliffs below there is a hidden gem in the shape of very interesting rock carvings of Jesus Christ. There are 3 in all, one of the crucifixion, another of Jesus carrying the cross, and one of him in the cave during the resurrection. These carvings were initially thought to be very, very ancient, but it's now thought that they were done by a local man in the 1950s. But again, I've got to stress, if you do go and investigate this site and see the carvings, then be careful. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe. You might like to take one of our dark history tours, ghost tours, or paranormal investigations that are held in Perthshire, Glasgow and Stirling. If so, please visit our website, which is www.historyandhorrortours.com. Thank you.